A company can use AI to get faster, more productive, and more efficient, while quietly becoming less capable of recognizing when something is wrong. That sounds impossible, but it's already beginning to happen. Not because AI is unreliable, not because employees are careless, and not because anyone decided to stop paying attention. It's happening because the people who used to build the work are slowly becoming the people who only review it. And reviewing is not the same muscle as building. So when AI eventually produces a wrong answer that looks completely right, who is still close enough to the work to catch it? And what happens when the answer is nobody? Think about an experienced IT person walking past a server room. Sometimes they stop. Maybe the fan sounds slightly different. Maybe the room feels warmer than it should. Maybe a light is blinking at a rhythm they've never seen before. Even if they can't immediately explain what it means, nothing on the dashboard is red yet, no alert has fired, but they look through the door and say, something's off. That isn't magic, and it's not something special that they were born with. It came from years of being close to the work. Years inside the logs. Years replacing hardware. Years tracing failures that looked ordinary at first. Years responding to problems at 2 a.m. and slowly learning which tiny details mattered. That person built an instinct, one incident at a time. Now picture someone equally intelligent managing that same environment entirely through an AI-assisted dashboard. They can ask better questions. They can summarize logs instantly. They can identify patterns across thousands of events faster than the experienced technician ever could by hand. In plenty of ways, they may be more capable, but they haven't had those thousands of small physical and mental repetitions that teach a person what slightly wrong feels like. They trust the dashboard because the dashboard has always been right. Every green light has meant healthy. Every calm summary has reflected a calm system. Until one day it doesn't. And on that day, the dashboard may look exactly the way it always has. Calm, confident, green. The only thing missing is someone close enough to the work to feel the difference anyway. That's the claim underneath everything in this episode, so it's worth actually taking apart. Reviewing isn't the same muscle as building. It never was. A manager reviewing a financial model is exercising a different skill than the analyst who built it cell by cell. An editor approving a draft is doing something different from the writer who struggled through every sentence. A senior developer reviewing generated code is using a different part of their expertise than the person who had to reason through the architecture from the beginning. AI is extremely good at taking over the building part, and in many cases that is genuinely useful. Drafts that once took an afternoon take 10 minutes. Reports that ate an entire Friday are ready before lunch. Code appears in seconds. Presentations arrive fully structured. Meetings that needed a week of preparation begin with a strong first pass before the coffee gets cold. And that speed is real. It is not fake productivity. It is not something we should pretend is bad simply because it creates new questions. But when the person who used to build the thing becomes the person who only reviews it, something changes. The work may still get completed. The person may still understand the subject. The output may still be excellent most of the time. But the daily repetitions that created their judgment begin to disappear. And reviewing a finished result does not automatically replace the experience of constructing it, breaking it, correcting it, and learning why it failed. AI isn't just changing how we work, it's changing how expertise gets built. Nobody makes a formal decision to lose that expertise. There's no meeting where a team says, starting Monday, we're going to let our instincts get rusty. And nobody has to do anything reckless for this to happen. It happens to good people on good teams using good tools, while every normal metric says the organization is improving. Faster output, shorter turnaround times, more work completed. Everything looks better right up until the one moment that it isn't. It happens one small convenience at a time. Someone used to write every customer response themselves. Now the system drafts it, and they approve it. Someone used to build the spreadsheet. Now they describe what they need and inspect the result. Someone used to write the first version of the code. Now they review what the assistant produced. At first, they still know the work deeply because they spent years doing it the old way. They can spot the strange phrase, the questionable formula, the risky assumption, the piece of logic that technically works but does not belong in production. But then a task that once required an hour of hands-on work becomes 5 minutes of oversight. Multiply that across a week, then a year, then an entire department. The muscle that once got exercised daily may now get exercised once a month. Eventually, the people joining the team may never build that muscle in the first place. They enter an environment where polished first drafts are normal. Clean reports are normal. Correct-looking answers arrive immediately. They don't necessarily become worse employees. In many ways, they may learn faster and produce more. But they may never develop the specific intuition that comes from seeing the work fail in messy, ordinary ways. You can't recognize every version of wrong if you have only ever been shown polished versions of right. That is what makes the drift difficult to see. Nobody suddenly loses competence. The organization does not wake up one morning unable to function. The instinct simply stops being used. And skills that stop being used do not remain frozen at their peak. They fade. This really isn't an IT problem either. It's the same thing in different areas. A finance professional who only reviews AI-built models may understand the business extremely well, but never develop the instinct for when one number looks suspicious because they never spent an afternoon tracing a formula through 3 tabs to find the misplaced decimal. A customer service rep who mostly approves AI-drafted responses may become incredibly efficient, but miss the subtle moment when a customer does not need a policy-correct answer. They need someone to recognize that this case does not fit the normal pattern. A new analyst working from AI-generated reports may never develop the reflex to question a chart that looks a little too clean, because clean is all they've ever seen. A marketing professional may approve dozens of polished assets without learning why one design is technically strong, but completely wrong for the audience, the moment, or the room where it will actually be used. A developer may receive code that passes every obvious test and still miss the architectural decision that will become a serious problem 6 months later. In each case, AI may be doing exactly what it was asked to do. The gap is not necessarily that the tool failed. The gap is that fewer people remain close enough to the work to recognize when the answer should not be trusted. Here's why almost nobody is measuring this. While everything is working, it does not look like a problem. Output goes up. Turnaround times go down. Employees complete more work, and customers receive faster responses. There is no standard metric labeled, "How sharp is our human instinct this quarter?" Until recently, nobody needed one. That instinct existed as a side effect of how the work was performed. People built expertise because the process forced them to perform the difficult parts themselves. Now, the process may no longer require those repetitions, but the business still assumes the expertise will remain available whenever it's needed. That assumption usually goes untested because the tool is right most of the time. And that's the paradox. The better the system performs during routine work, the less frequently the human skill gets exercised. The less frequently it gets exercised, the less prepared the organization may be for the rare failure. Then one day something unusual happens. The model confidently uses the wrong source. The report contains a plausible but misleading number. The code works in testing but fails under an edge case nobody considered. The customer receives a response that is technically compliant and completely inappropriate, and the organization discovers the missing expertise in the same way it lost it, quietly, by not noticing until the consequences are already visible. Now, none of this is an argument for going backwards. It would make no sense to rebuild every spreadsheet by hand, write every first draft from a blank page, or reject tools that make routine work faster. The answer is not to resist AI. The answer is to be deliberate about which human instincts still need practice. Aviation offers a useful model. Autopilot can manage enormous portions of a modern flight. It can hold altitude, follow routes, manage speed, and perform routine operations with extraordinary consistency. But pilots still train for failures that almost never happen. They spend time in simulators dealing with engines, instruments, weather, and situations they may never encounter in an actual career. Airlines don't keep pilots because autopilot is bad. They keep pilots because rare failures matter more than routine success. And that is the principle worth borrowing. Not to force people to perform every task manually just to prove they can, but identify the parts of the work where judgment matters most and make sure someone still practices them. Build the model occasionally. Write the critical logic from scratch. Handle a complex customer case without the generated response. Review the raw data rather than only the summary. Run simulations. Introduce controlled failures. Ask the team to find the flaw in an output that looks convincing. Not because the AI needs help every day, because the human instinct may be needed on the one day that AI can't be trusted. The strongest teams will not be the teams that move slowly. They will be the teams that move quickly without accidentally surrendering the ability to recognize when speed has taken them in the wrong direction. So here's something worth trying this week. Think about the last meaningful thing AI helped you create. An email, a report, a spreadsheet, a presentation, or some code. Now ask yourself one uncomfortable question. If one important part of that output had been confidently wrong, would you have caught it? Not because the formatting looked strange, and not because the tool announced uncertainty. Would your own knowledge have told you that something did not fit? If the answer is yes, ask where that ability came from. Chances are it came from years of doing some version of that work yourself. Then ask whether the people learning the role today are still getting enough of those same repetitions to build the judgment you now rely on. At a team level, pick one process that is mostly AI assisted. Don't start with every process, just pick one. Ask 3 things. Who understands how this works beneath the final output? Who would recognize a believable mistake quickly? And what are we doing to keep that person's instinct sharp, or to build it in someone new? The answer may be simple. A finance lead builds one model manually each quarter. A developer writes one critical piece of logic without assistance. A service team reviews a handful of raw unscripted cases every month. An analyst periodically reconstructs a report from the source data. Small repetitions, deliberate repetitions. Probably inefficient if measured in isolation. Extremely valuable if they preserve the one human capability the organization can afford to discover is missing during a real failure. AI is making a lot of work faster, and that's good news. But speed is not the only thing worth protecting. Somebody still needs to know what wrong feels like. And if AI gets it wrong, somebody still needs to notice. If this kind of thing is useful to you, figuring out how to think clearly about AI instead of simply reacting to the headlines, hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.